What did Trump actually do to earn this penalty? Stewart said Monday, referencing, well, it turns out that for a decade, whenever Trump wanted to get a loan or make a deal, he would illegally inflate the value of his real estate. Stop! Loaded. Illegally. Not true. You are allowed to make mistakes on evaluations, and you are allowed to...
This isn't really an oopsie. Like, the comma was off. Off by about half. You know, it may have doubled in size. Yeah. I'm sorry, size can matter, all right? Like, at the end of the day, you can't just suddenly go from, like, a 6 to a 12-incher out of nowhere. And on paper, I mean, you think it sounds great, but then all of a sudden... Like, I'm just saying, at the end of the day, this... It's not just a whoopsie. Whoopsie! Really mad that I have to do this. This is a segment where I'm having to defend a person selling a $3 million apartment for fucking $17 million. These are just silly things to me, things I can't relate to.
Trump fraud, Jon Stewart, the overvaluing of his apartment. Let's break this down. Because the controversy continues, Jon Stewart has responded. We did talk about this last night on Timcast IRL. And this has to do with Jon Stewart criticizing Kevin O'Leary when Kevin O'Leary said Trump did not commit fraud. And then me calling out a misstatement, a factual inaccuracy by Jon Stewart, which has now been wildly conflated and incorrectly assessed by numerous people in the media because they looked at one tweet and they didn't actually watch my show or any of the shows we do.
How dare they? How dare they look at the words that you post on social media to lots and lots. How many followers does Tim have? 2 million. You got 2 million followers, Tim. 2 million people are following you. It was a very, very viral tweet, I might add. So Jon Stewart, oh my God, I've been caught doing something not remotely similar to Trump. I guess all we need to do now is start a fraud college, steal classified documents, bankrupt casinos, pay hush money, grab pussies, discriminate in housing, cheat at golf, and foment insurrection, and you'll revere me. So that was Jon Stewart. And then Tim Pool says, my brother, you sold a property in New York valued at $1.8 million to someone for $17.5, and they lost $4 million because of it. Now, yeah, a lot of people pointed out that what Trump did was that he falsely exaggerated, by a lot, by the way, the value of his property to secure a bank loan against that false statement. That's where the fraud comes in. This is selling your house for more than market value, which you can legally do. If I put my house up for $1 and then all of a sudden someone comes along and then they're like, hey, by the way, I'll give you $10 million for that $1 home, you can accept that offer. They can make you an offer and you can accept it. You don't have to in either direction, but that's what you can do. Absolutely. There's going to be a lot of taxes on the capital gains because, ooh, yeah, you've churned quite a profit there. But these two different things are different. Now, at the same time, don't get me wrong. I'm literally sitting there and it's like, I want to correct this because it's just so goddamn silly. But holy fuck. How? How did you sell a $1.8 million apartment for $17.5 million? Was the market just wild? Was it out of control? That to me, like, again, yeah. And you pay taxes on a valuation of $748,000, as in on the original valuation of the property, which may have been, I would assume, the year before. So with property taxes, then you wouldn't be paying those directly the same moment that the house sold on the point, but you would be selling and having to pay capital gains on the profit from that sale, which yes, you would have profited handsomely if you made 17.5. The market is wild. Was that it? The market was just that wild? Because, yeah, and then it's like, and the person lost $4 million. This has nothing to do with Jon Stewart.
My friends, let me break down for you the gist of the Trump fraud case in greater detail and explain to you why Jon Stewart is wrong and what Letitia James has done to Donald Trump. The fraud case against Trump, it is wrong. I'm not saying Trump is absolutely innocent of all things all the time or anything like that.
Okay.
But certainly what we are dealing with right now does not rise to the level of any kind of civil violation. And what we are seeing is the New York government stretching their arguments to target Trump and the Trump family for political reasons.
Jon Stewart lays into Shark Tank Judge Kevin O'Leary for comments on Trump fraud case. The Daily Show host uses Monday's slot to refute the notion that just because most of the nation's real estate investors commit fraud, it shouldn't be persecuted. Jon Stewart's weekly slap down the Daily Show desk, following the harsh judgment levied by Judge Arthur Engoron in the case by New York Attorney General Letitia James. Trump has been staring down a Monday deadline to raise enough cash to pay a $454 million bond. But on Monday, that figure was reduced at the 11th hour by the state's appeal court, and now Trump and his associates must fork over $175 million within 10 days of the ruling. Trump has said that he will pay that amount, indicating in a Truth Social post that he has $500 million if he does not pay the penalty. James has said she could execute the state's right to seize some of the former president's assets. James' investigation found that for the last decade, a Trump organization would illegally inflate the value of its real estate holdings while seeking loans. The appellate court's decision, Trump said in a statement after that reduction, shows how ridiculous and outrageous the $454 million judgment is. O'Leary said in a recent appearance on CNN to discuss that penalty, agreed with the former president. That didn't go very well with the investment community because we're all asking each other, who's next? The quote from O'Leary's interview concluded a mortgage compiled by the Daily Show cable news guest commenting on the case, with one businessman calling the decade of fraud committed by the Trump organization a, quote, victimless crime that is, quote, blatantly unfair. Stewart laid into a set of investors that singled out O'Leary, mocking the notion put upon by the investment community while concluding the reputation cultivated by the CEO. I'm surprised to hear from Kevin O'Leary, Stewart told the audience. He's a guy who's such an asshole. Even other people on the Shark Tank think he's an asshole. I'm surprised to hear that he's so chill about overvaluing something that he thinks is victimless, because when someone tries to do that to him, the show cut to a montage of O'Leary angrily mocking the valuations that Shark Tank entrepreneurs have indicated for their startups. Your valuation is insane. Your valuation is crazy. I think that's a crazy valuation. I think your valuation is stinky poo-poo. Stewart questioned why O'Leary would not get as hopping mad as he was in these moments on Shark Tank when it comes to overvaluations such as the ones committed by Trump, which was never victimless, as the comic pointed out. First, the banks that got paid at lower interest rates, although to be honest, who gives a shit? But second, money isn't infinite. A loan that goes into the liar's hands doesn't go to someone who's given a more honest evaluation, so the system becomes incentivized for corruption. Avoiding taxes hurts all of us. Donald Trump's shenanigans come at the cost in New York, to be honest. O'Leary was quoted with the same CNN interview with host Laura Coates, challenging his notion that James's office had no business going after Trump and that the widespread fraud his organization committed, indicating that breaking laws like falsifying business records, insurance fraud, and conspiracy are actual crimes. That of O'Leary Ventures, a venture capital investment company, replied that, as far as he's concerned, Trump isn't alone in such a business practice. Everything you just listed off is done by every real estate developer, everywhere on earth, in every city. This has never ever been prosecuted. O'Leary's candor on this didn't escape Stewart's acid tongue as the host took the CEO's call to task. There's a theory in law that if enough people commit a crime, it automatically becomes legal. The fucking entitled arrogance. I don't know if you know this, but most people just kind of commit fraud and expect to face no repercussions. Even if everyone's doing it, trying to get a car loan by saying you have 10 times as much money as you really do, or claim 20 dependents when you have no children, or say you make slightly less money to qualify for food assistance, I guarantee you there are not just financial consequences for those lies, but criminal ones. But don't tell that to the investment community, because in their minds, in the pursuit of profit, there's no rule that cannot be bent, there's no principle that cannot be undercut, as long as you and your friends are making money.
Now, we know Letitia James basically campaigned on, I'm going to go after Trump. But let's start from the beginning for those that don't know what's happening, and we'll address the Jon Stewart controversy. Kevin O'Leary, Shark Tank, he came out after this ruling where they said they could seize Trump's properties. Kevin O'Leary says this is insane. Trump did what literally every single real estate developer does. None of this is out of the ordinary. They're targeting him, claiming it was fraud. His lenders were all made whole, knew everything, did their own due diligence, all fact. But wait, you see, here's a key detail. Judge Engoron ruled summarily that Donald Trump committed fraud, meaning there was no evidentiary hearing. He received the documents and said, you know what? Trump committed fraud. Bang. A separate trial was held. In that trial, Trump's lender said, not only did we do our own due diligence, we actually undervalued based on what Trump said. That's what we do. Trump even stated in his financial document.
Just because it's normalized in certain sectors, that doesn't make it legal. Well, again, it goes back to if everyone's doing it, what's the crime? You know, it seems like a victimless crime. And it's going after the banks. Everyone hates these banks, right? Jon Stewart responded with characteristic wit on Wednesday after a New York Post story centered around a right-wing commentator's tweet. The Post quoted podcaster Tim Pool, who basically wondered whether Stewart committed fraud when he sold his New York City penthouse for $17.5 million in 2014. The publication based its conclusion on the fact that the assessor records from that year showed the property's estimated market value sitting at $1.882 million. According to the Post, the property's assessed valuation was under $850,000. On Monday's episode of The Daily Show, Stewart explained why Donald Trump's claim that his bank fraud judgment for inflating property values to secure better loans and then using lower values for tax purposes was not a victimless crime. Let me just hear that. And then it said, did Jon Stewart commit fraud when he sold his penthouse for $17.5 million? New York listed the market value at 1.8, assessed in value at around $800,000, Pool asked. But Stewart wasn't having it. And then we saw that. While Trump presented his inflated property values to lenders in order to get favorable loans, Stewart sold his property to a buyer who was willing to pay $17.5 million. Yes. I'm not here to defend the housing market. I'm not here to defend the big banks, but I am here to defend reality. And, you know, the truth be told, different things are different. If you had evidence that Jon Stewart didn't pay capital gains on the sale of the house, and in that sense was defrauding, you know, paying his rightful taxation to the government, that's a completely different story. But to say, hey, by the way, Jon Stewart had a house that was valued at $1.8 million. He successfully sold it for $17.5 million. I mean, y'all are the capitalists. Shouldn't you be like, oh, good for you? Shouldn't you be like, nice? Nice. Yeah, nice. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't know how the real estate agency, or sorry, the real estate market in New York is so grotesque that this actually was something that just took place. That's wild, going from a 1.8 million valued home to 17.5. But that's still, you know, if this was a buyer's remorse kind of situation, that's kind of on the person who made the offer that he accepted. There's also situations, and I have no idea what the background is behind this, right? There's situations where people want to buy other people's properties, and those other people don't want to sell their properties. They're like, I'm not actually, my house is not for sale. It's like, I know, but I really want to buy this location, or I want to buy up this lot, or I want to buy up this entire area to demolish it to build more high rises or something. So you start getting pretty ludicrous offers. That can also happen where people are straight up like, yeah, I know your house is valued at $2 million. We'll give you $4 million. It's an offer you can't refuse. You can easily get yourself a really nice condo somewhere else. Please do that so we can have this. I don't know if that's the story behind it. But the different things are different, you know? An entirely different scenario. Stewart did not, for instance, submit documents tripling the size of his penthouse like the former president did with his own Trump Tower. Additionally, it is quite common for properties' assessed value and its market value, what someone would pay for it, to vary. Yes, I don't know if any of you have ever bumped into a real estate agent before. Scum and villainy of the highest order. They absolutely they are. But they'll be the ones to tell you that what really dictates how much you're going to get is what people are willing to pay. That's it, right? There's a market value for sure, but then there's what the market will pay and what someone is going to pay. It could be dramatically below. Your house, your property value could be assessed at $1 million, and all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, but at this time, people aren't really willing to go higher than 650, 700 for your location, all that kind of stuff. All factors that could play into it, right? But of course, you know, Jon Stewart's a massive hypocrite for doing this.
Stewart is wrong. The point I was intending to make, what Jon Stewart said, and then I'm going to talk to you about property values in New York and a key moment from the Trump fraud case, basically destroying the entire case. And
if you're all wondering why Tim Pool is such a clown and how he gets away with it and still maintains his level of popularity, just look at the amount of likes on the tweet that he made on this. Like, it went super viral. People want dunks more than they want reality. They want to be able to, like, oh, shit, you see the beanie just slapped down Jon Stewart? Man, he got him. The hypocrisy, dog. Fuck, it's crazy. And then you check, like, you take a look at it, and you're like, whoa, no. These are different scenarios. Honestly, it's wild. This is not like, oh, well, you do this thing, but you also do another thing.
Judge still.
I mean, they both involve property and money, so you got that thing. I guess it's not like he had ice cream and then you came after him for that or something.
Not dismiss it. So the Blaze actually has a really great breakdown. On the Daily Show Monday, Jon Stewart discussed where Trump's civil fraud case presently stands. Stewart argued that Trump's supposed over-evaluation of his properties was not victimless, intimating further that those who do likewise in pursuit of profit are immoral, if not outright criminal. The New York Post and critics online intimated this week that Stewart might have his own phantasmal victims of his own. In response to the accusations of hypocrisy, Stewart lashed out Wednesday. However, his defense fell flat, absent an adoring audience ready to laugh on cue. You see, here's the thing. Let me read the quote. What did Trump actually do to earn this penalty? Stewart said Monday. referencing, well, it turns out that for a decade, whenever Trump wanted to get a loan or make a deal, he would illegally inflate the value of his real estate. Stop. Loaded. Illegally. Not true. You are allowed to make mistakes on evaluations, and you are allowed to.
This isn't really an oopsie. Like the comma was off. Dude, off by about half. You know, it may have doubled in size. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, size can matter, all right? Like, at the end of the day, you can't just suddenly go from, like, a 6 to a 12-incher out of nowhere. And on paper, I mean, you think it sounds great, but then all of a sudden... Like, I'm just saying, at the end of the day, it's not just a whoopsie. Whoopsie!
So I'm not going to argue it's illegal if the city knows this is how we do it. So, sure, maybe this is the 6% assessment for taxes. Okay. There are numerous properties in New York that function on this principle. Now, as for Jon Stewart, his property may be a class 1, I don't know, but the tax assessed value, the market value was 1.8. The government said the market value was 1.8 million, and thus he would pay $748K. According to the county records, it looks like it was a class 4 property, which they list at 45%. So it seems like Jon Stewart knew when he bought the property at 5.8, it was worth substantially more, considering he went to sell it at 17.5, yet still paid taxes with his name on the assessor records at $748K. Pay your fair share, John. But
he did. Or they'd be coming after him. All of this public-facing information, like, surrounding a super rich and famous celebrity who has a ton of fucking money. Jon Stewart is loaded as fuck. If you pay based on what your assessment is, right? Like, if the market is willing to pay way more for your house than it's worth, that doesn't suddenly mean that you pay your property taxes based on speculation. Do you know how insane that would be? I demand more! More! He could have gotten more. Someone out there would have paid 30 million for it, 40 million.
This is New York City. It's how they operate. So I'm not going to argue it's illegal if the city knows this is how we do it. It's how everybody does it. And if it's how everybody does it, then it's not literally, I should say it's not functionally illegal, but it may be on paper.
Okay, so he's trying to conflate the two things now. This is where it all, I guess, comes full circle because, hey, Donald Trump did a thing, and then Jon Stewart did a thing, and then if no one's paying attention to either thing, are they, but like, in one case, what you're doing is considered fraud. In the other case, what you're doing is considered selling your property for above market value. That's what is being done. You're still going to pay taxes on what your house has been assessed at. It's the reason they do assessment of property value, to be able to determine the amount of money that you're going to have to pay. And they do this on a large scale for homeowners, generally writ large. If you would like to change that and criminalize that behavior, then that's a completely different conversation to have, in amongst everything else. This is so silly. And again, I feel like because they're like, you want dunks more than you want reality, there's going to continue to be more and more of these kind of stories put forward where everyone thinks like, holy fuck, this was such an epic takedown.
And I showed these values, poking at the segment he did on his show. Perhaps you should actually watch my nightly show and my podcast.
You were just wrong. Can't you just take the L? You don't have to keep doubling and tripling down and being like, none of you watch my show. You don't know. All right. You got to look at the tweets, and then there's like the addendum. They're the kind of like the Cole's notes, right? They're just supposed to be references for you to go to the Timcast and then watch there, and I'll fully explain myself. But I'm allowed to say whatever fucking batshit stuff I want online and not be judged for it because you don't watch the show. You cowards.
Before making an assessment on a response to Jon Stewart. What this individual then goes on to say is that we're conflating. What's happening here is Poole, Jacob, and other critics attacking Stewart are conflating 3 different types of real estate values. No, I am being facetious.
Oh, okay. So the cowards, it's just for the lulz, I see. Ah, exaggerating for dramatic effect. It's hyperbolic. Yes, have you heard of Boogie's going down that road right now. Boogie's trying to like fucking double and triple down on this whole like video games are lectures. Video games should be fun, not lectures about how being white is bad or being a white man is bad. And it's like you get called out repeatedly. Name a single fucking video game that does that. There you can't. And then finally, like yesterday, he was like, okay, obviously I was being hyperbolic when I used the example. No, there's not literally a video game that lectures you about being a white man is bad. I was trying to point out that the left has to attack straw men because they have no real arguments. And I was like, but you invented a straw man to try and raise a point about how the left virtue signals and argues against imaginary straw men and things that they make up that you do not realize. You in real time did the very thing you're trying to complain about. It's just all so silly. I was being facetious. Well, I was being hyperbolic, yes. It's great. I don't have to have any real declarative statements, you know? I don't have to be affirmative or clear or concise or use language that perhaps may dictate what I believe. None of that. I can just say whatever I want and then be like, I was being facetious and everyone didn't realize that, yeah, okay, obviously, I know that this isn't literally the same thing. Okay, I didn't need to point it out to me by numerous media organizations and people online. I got you. Oh, and just one last thing. The Babylon Bee saga has continued to derail, and it's really funny to watch. If you don't know, the Babylon Bee made a single joke about white supremacists basically being inbreds, and then all of their fans got really mad about that, being like, why are you going after white people? And then Seth Dillon tried to like be like, what the fuck? And then he was all like, something changed. It wasn't us. You know, y'all have gone just too far right. And of course, it's like the hot dog meme where it's like, we're all trying to find the guys who did this because the Babylon Bee pushing all their fucking white supremacist talking points for so long to the purposes of comedy. It's comedy. It's for the it's jokes, right? It's facetious. Yeah, that's what they are. They're facetious. So it's backfired a bit, and they're a little bit you know, ticked off. And then they released this one. DeSantis kicked out of Republican Party for accomplishing too many things. Now, this is both a, you know, you want to give DeSantis, or give a little light jab at the Republicans, while at the same time doing the little circle jerk for the war on woke, which, yeah, unfortunately didn't work out very well on a presidential level. And so then you get comments like this. It seems like the primary objective of people at the Babylon Bee is to subvert the American right as much as possible until we finally wake up and cut the cord on them. A lot of responses saying that it was just a joke from the same resentful anti-Trumpers who were hell-bent on sowing division within the party during a critical election year because their preferred candidate lost by a landslide. Sit down. Sit down. Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We first want to give a shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. This program is produced thanks to the generous support of our Patreon supporters: Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbar Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Bomey, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Travis McClinton, and Words Greenwood, as well as every other person you see on the screen right now. This show would not be possible without them. And if you want to join these wonderful people who make this entire program possible, simply go to patreon.com/theserfs and you can unlock uncensored and bonus episodes and, you know, help us exist.